This is Barry Martin Snyder. Our website is limitlessself.com, and we also have a Way of the Christ website. We're coming upon the advent of the Easter season soon, and I became inspired to share something of my journey with the Christ in hopes of giving you all a window into the magnificence of what this journey can be like. I'm hoping by sharing my experience, you'll get a living experience for yourself, sort of vicariously through mine, of what this energy and consciousness we call Christ is all about. So just take a few moments to drop inside, go into that deeper place inside yourself, in your soul. Just taking a few deep breaths, dropping down out of the head and the mind into the heart. And this would be the place to listen and receive this more as an experience than thoughts and ideas. So let us begin. I was born in a little mountain town in central Pennsylvania in the 1950s. Were a very kind of quiet, sleepy time there. My family was Christian. We went to church and Sunday school every Sunday. I found it really boring. Couldn't stand sitting on those hard pews, and very little seemed to mean anything to me. The only thing that I really enjoyed was the service on Christmas Eve. Lots of candles and lights and wonderful carols. And that all felt good to me. But I noticed that most people were not living they were trying to teach us. So I quickly turned off to Christianity. My spiritual awakening really began in my 20s, more of an Eastern orientation. I studied the self-realization courses, did transcendental meditation, and stayed on that path. Until into my 30s, I left my career, banking, and went to India in search of a God-realized being. And through a series of circumstances, I was taken to the presence of the being known as Mahavatar Babaji in his embodiment or form of Hirakan Baba. In my communion with Babaji and some meditation practices I learned from Adidas and Raj, I experienced Kundalini awakening, which resulted in the direct realization that God lives in me as the core of my being, my true self. That awakening, I was living in Europe. I was giving a photo of Christ that was purportedly from the Shroud of Turin, taken by a scientific expedition there in the 1970s to study it. I carried this picture in my daytimer, my planning book, for years. I found myself studying the Course in Miracles, which comes through Christ. And one day while living in Santa Barbara, before my actual Kundalini awakening, I felt this very sweet, high frequency come down upon me in golden white light. And I just heard the words, the Christ. And that was the first time that I had any experience of the Christ as a living presence. Even after being with Babaji, I found myself putting the picture of Christ from the Shroud of Turin on my altar. And I felt this growing sense of a connection with Christ. And this presence, every time I would meditate, of Christ would come over me. I was living on the island of Kauai when the Kundalini waking occurred. And after the Kundalini went up the spine and all the chakras opened, up through the crown and beyond, the soul lotus flowered in the center of the chest above the heart. The presence of God began to suffuse all my bodies and chakras. And as it did, it took me into deeper and deeper places. On one particular morning, after I had reached this very ecstatic place, I felt this pull to a deep, dark inner place, which often happened after the light was so bright and so strong. I would be taken in the other direction, the opposite. In those times, I would be called back to the mother. To me, that was water. I would go to the ocean and swim, go to deep, dark caves on the island. And this morning, I was guided to go into the bathroom and draw a tub of warm water and submerge myself in it, close all the blinds, go into the darkness. As I began my deep circular breathing, I descended deeper and deeper and deeper. all sense of buried, this personal sense of self began to fall away. And a nameless, shapeless fear as I had never experienced. It was so powerful, as though my whole being became frozen into one big psychic knot. Everything contracted and I could barely take a breath. I thought I might be blacking out, and everything just began to slip away. The sense of the body, then all thought and feeling. And a question came across the screen of the mind. Is this death? I kept spiraling down and down into the darkness. It was so black that even black did not describe it. It was as though it absorbed all light, all being. And then even the blackness faded, and all that remained was an emptiness, full of a vibrating, humming sound, and the last remnants of me dissolved. Then out of this humming void, a sense of being began to return. It was different than anything I had ever known or experienced. It wasn't personal. It wasn't human. It wasn't physical. It wasn't anything I could describe. This self came out of this vast, all-encompassing void, flowing through and interpenetrating everything. It unfolded the beginnings of thoughts and feelings. And slowly it revealed the presence of a bodily form, which arose out of it. It embraced and held every cell in its empty splendor. It clung to nothing, and nothing clung to it. It was that which was prior to all things, including any sense of me. All danced as a shimmering hologram floating in pregnant emptiness. From beyond the door of death and annihilation, I began to return, born as something strange and new. This body seemed foreign, as though I'd never known it before. Its operation was a mystery. Slowly, with the bodily skills of a baby, I somehow managed to drag myself out of that tub and onto the floor. I was just learning how to inhabit and move a body again. The only thought I had was to get into the next room where I had the altar, my sacred sanctuary, so that I might lie before the picture of Christ Jesus. I couldn't get up to walk, so I literally just wrapped a towel around myself and crawled out of the bathroom. When I reached the living room on the way to my altar room, I collapsed on the floor. I couldn't continue. My housemate heard all this and she came running from her room to see what was going on with me. Her face was, I never forget looking at her face. It was full of alarm and questioning, like, what is going on here? She didn't voice this question, but I felt it in the core of my being. I looked up into her eyes and another voice came out of this new self that I didn't know, that spoke through my lips. And it said, I am the awakening Christ. As these words left my mouth, I heard them with surprise, but I also recognized that they were a revelation of the truth. During the days and weeks that followed, I knew that something profound was happening to me. I didn't know what it was or what it meant. Those words that were uttered spontaneously continued to circulate through my mind. I knew there was truth in them somehow, but it also engendered this sense of self-doubt, thoughts that I was delusional, that the whole idea was too fantastic. Somehow I know they were true. But the conflict began to resolve as I realized that it wasn't about me, Barry. Wasn't about that at all. It was something very much vaster and deeper. It wasn't limited to, quote, me. It was a vast, all-encompassing movement I could see and feel everywhere I went. The Christ was not only awakening me, it was awakening in everyone and everywhere. As so often is the case, when we have one of these powerful experiences, it takes time. I didn't realize what a turning point it was in my life. I intuitively knew it was powerful and immensely significant, but I had no sense that would initiate the rest of my spiritual journey in this lifetime or begin the service that all my lifetimes had prepared me to fulfill during this pivotal time on planet Earth. Beyond even that, this experience opened a window into a larger reality, the most profound transformation of the human species. and the earth imaginable. Somehow I knew this all-pervasive birth was no longer way out there in the future. It was about to occur and was actually in its early stages. If there's sufficient interest in this story, I will continue and talk about my unfolding experience with the Christ, and all the amazing and miraculous things that have occurred that are relevant to everyone on this planet. Please let me know if you enjoy it. And everything that I will share is included and much more in our third book, We Are the Awakening Christ. I will put the link to that below with our website. If you desire to stay connected with us on an ongoing basis, there's also a link there for our newsletter. Much love and many blessings.